Welcome to the Freight Agent Insider Podcast, hosted by Levi Van Pay.
And welcome in, everybody. Good to have you all back. I'm Levi, LVP, your host. The new year is always so backwards to me because we're starting a new year, but football season is coming to an end, which is just the worst thing that can happen, especially when you're a Packers fan and the Packers are losing. This is just not okay. Before we kick this off, if you could all go like, subscribe, Freight Agent Insider on YouTube, Spotify, and TikTok. Smash the bell icon for those auto alerts to new episodes every Monday, 9 a.m. Central Time. If you have any questions for our agents or any of our show guests, you can ask them live. Just go to freightagentinsider.com, click the page, talk to us live, and you can pre-record a message right there, send it to us. We'll play it live on the show. If you want to become a freight agent, but you've got no experience, freightagentinsider.com. You can go ahead and start our Freight Agent Boot Camp. It's put together using all the tips, tricks from our show guests. There's a lot of good stuff in there. You can get 25% off that with discount code INSIDER. Down to business. We always have interesting guests on the show, always related to freight agency in one way or another, and this episode is no different. We're going to talk with the doctor of transportation today, Mr. Matt Dahl. How are you, brother?
How's it going, man? That's an interesting intro. Happy to be with you, man. I mean, we've been friends for a while, and when you asked me, I was happy to come on. Obviously, it's a fun topic for both of us. So what we do day in and day out. So
true to the name, Freight Agent Insider. It's going to be a cool insider for all of the brokers and agents getting to kind of peek behind the curtain of what it is that we do. In a lot of ways, we are kind of the driving force of growth for these agent programs out there.
Yeah, 100%. It'd be fun to talk about this too, because I have my own podcast, but we talk about all sorts of things. We rarely, and more interviewing guests, so we rarely get into the nitty gritty of agents. So it'd be fun to kind of get into that with you. I know you and I talk on the phone about this stuff all the time.
Quite often. And for anybody that does not know, Matt is the director of agent recruitment at HD Ships. I'm the director of agent development. I'm a dad over here at Select Transport, and two of what I would consider two of the better agent programs out there. Matt, you started with HD Ships very early on when HD was, I think, just a couple of agents. How is HD doing now, and how have you particularly helped fuel that growth?
Yeah, when we started, it was hard, man. We had two agents. We were mainly a W-2 company. Two of our owners, they were W-2 reps for a number of years, and they opened their own brokerage, in between being agents themselves. So they've actually sat in the seats, but they wanted to get, the credit, the tech established really before going with the agent program. But yeah, it was difficult at first. I mean, we had two agents, and agents at that time were just kind of taking my word for it. Fast forward today, I think we had 65 agents approximately last week get paid. So it's been good growth in the last 20 months or so.
That's awesome to hear. And I'd love to hear from you on this. When I started the show, one of the unintended consequences was all of the different agent recruiters out there watching the show to kind of go after the show guests, because we do have a lot of freight agents on the show, obviously. So I know there's a lot of them tuning into this. What is some of your best advice for those agent recruiters out there? You are probably one of the top agent recruiters in the industry. What kind of sets you apart?
Oh man, you put me on a spot. Put me on a spot like that. I mean, there's a lot of good agent recruiters out there. I mean, I like to say, I think there's luck in everything. And I think one of the things that kind of helped me the most, I got on LinkedIn when I was just a broker, 6 months experience just for fun. I made a lot of friends back then, and I never would have dreamed I would have been an agent recruiter. Built up a good network, and that really has helped me. I mean, That's where a vast majority of my agents are coming from referrals from friends or from inbound content on LinkedIn. Now, obviously, we have to have a very solid program. Just because people find out about us doesn't mean they're gonna, just blindly sign. But that's really kind of helped me because I mean, most of the people who are on LinkedIn are brokers. Don't get me wrong, I have friends who get shippers on there. But I think if you're selling to brokers or recruiting, I mean, LinkedIn is a game changer in that regard. Certainly helped me.
Yeah, it's well said, Matt. And I think, for anybody out there listening, and you don't have to be an agent recruiter to apply this, as long as you're willing to step outside of the box and think a little bit differently. And I think that's kind of what you did early on with LinkedIn. Like you really built up your following on there. I mean, we've talked about this many times, but that's where you get a lot of your leads, as do I, is coming from LinkedIn. But don't be afraid to step outside of the box a little bit and try something new. Even for me, that's kind of what this podcast was. I was no expert in podcasting. Matt, you've got your own show as well, and I don't think you were an expert in it either when you started. But just being being willing to open a door and walk through it.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is just doing it. I mean, even our podcast, I mean, your podcast is way more high, tech and organized than ours. Will's and I's kind of just like, hey, who are we going to find to go on this week? We're going to go live. We don't have microphones. Um, we just kind of did it for fun. I think a lot of it is just doing it, whether it's posting on LinkedIn, doing a podcast, even if you don't want to feel comfortable putting yourself out there. I mean, make friends. I mean,
Yes.
a lot of business and this comes from relationships and referrals, and you don't need everyone to like you. Most certainly not, but you do need to have a good group of friends who are, successful and looking out for your best. Also, who will, call you out when you need to do stuff better too.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think that's the number one takeaway, especially for whether you're a broker, an agent recruiter, or hell, if you're in tech sales somewhere and you just stumbled upon this podcast. It's the most underrated statement that you just made is make friends, make industry friends. I mean, we're at competing brokerages, we're good buddies, and who knows how many leads like we've passed between each other or some of our other agent recruiter acquaintances where it might just not be a fit with me. I'll pass them to you, but like, hey, let's work together as opposed to being just strictly competitors.
yeah, 100%. I mean, I'll give you a couple examples. Now, there was an agent that was let go from a different agent program, and he had good paying customers. There was just a disagreement. Another recruiter gave me a call. Hey, you want this guy, $3 million agent? We reached out to him, signed here. An example from us is we don't have a Canadian entity. So I've had, some big time Canadian agents moving Canadian to Canadian freight that we can't touch right now that I've, referred out. I mean, there's all types of different scenarios, that come up. Uh, and that's, I think that's why it's important to be friends with your competition too. And I think for the most part, the agent recruiting community is pretty tight. I say for the most part, but there's definitely 6 or 7 of us at competing companies that talk pretty frequently. It's not good news either if you're an agent trying to commit fraud or have a history of sketchy behavior. You're probably most of the companies you're going to be looking at are going to know about it. So.
Oh, yeah. And man, when we turn this camera off, the conversations that we've had, and we could name drop, we obviously won't, but there are some out there that there's some fraudsters out there that we know very well that, you know, we probably have tried to help other brokerages steer away from those individuals, but it is tough. I mean, just as an example for myself, I've tried doing that in the past, and because I didn't have a relationship with any individuals at this brokerage that this fraudster was landing, they thought I was just like trying to hurt their brokerage when it was completely opposite of that. But what we're talking about here is turning competition into collaboration. And again, kind of putting you on the spot here, Matt, since we are at competing brokerages, but what makes the difference? How do I word this? What makes the difference between a toxic competitive relationship and a healthy one? Like, as an example, I don't know if we've ever pulled agents from each other, But like, let's just use that as an example. Like, what if that happened? How and I think what we're probably getting at here is like, how do we keep it a friendly, competitive environment as opposed to just a cutthroat one?
Yeah, I think the fun thing about, the agent world is at any reputable program. Now, I've had some comments on LinkedIn lately. Apparently there are some agent programs that have non-competes, non-solicits, which if you're an agent watching the show, do not work for any agent program that has a non-compete or non-solicit. But I mean, the
For
bottom
sure.
line is when you're dealing with reputable agent programs, and that's where, you and I work for and a lot of our friends. I mean, agents, they have the ability to go, where they want. So if there's something we're not doing right and, we lose an agent, I mean, that's on us, whether that be to a friend or, elsewhere. So I think that's just part of the business. I personally myself don't like go out of my way to target, agent programs where I have friends at for two reasons. If I think it's a good agent program, my ROI is going to be very bad on that. And secondly, just out of like respect for my friends, but I also understand people have a job to do. People go after our agents all the time and, there's no bad blood on our end, and just make sure, our agent program is up to par and, we're doing things that we're supposed to be doing. So puts us,
Yeah.
it's a good test for us.
We get solicitations, rather, our agents get solicitations from one or two particular agent programs. I mean, it's got to be multiple solicitations per day. And to date, we haven't lost a single one. And I imagine you're probably pretty similar in that bucket where I know that you guys get hit up as well. Your agents do all the time, but they're not leaving. And I think that is a testament to the program you have.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, since I've been here, we've lost one agent who's moved at least 10 shipments. Now, obviously, we've had agents who haven't moved 10 shipments, customers haven't transferred, something's happened, they have to go back and get a W-2 salary roll. We've only had one agent, though, move at least 10 loads and leave, and that's in, 20 months, with
Incredible.
65 agents now. Retention is key. I mean, anyone can sign agents, but the difference between W-2 and the agent route is, W-2s generally have non-competes, non-solicits tying people down for movement a lot of times, whereas or making things complicated, I should say. Whereas the
Yeah,
agent programs or any reputable programs, those don't exist. So you really have to, do what you say in that
that's
regard,
right.
or people will just take their customers and leave.
Over the course of probably the last month, month and a half now, I think I've assisted in onboarding 5 agents to Select Transport. And like you said, the hard part definitely isn't onboarding agents. It's finding the highly producing agents that are going to A, not be those fraudsters we were talking about earlier, but be productive. So you're not wasting your company's resources in the onboarding process, follow-ups, things like that. Um, I I want to kind of touch on, you mentioned it, non-competes, non-solicits. There's those agent programs out there that do have things like this. What should agents be looking for, Matt? The ones moving, possibly moving brokerages, or just, maybe they're moving from W-2 into an agency in 2026. What should they be looking for? What should they be staying away from?
Yeah. So my personal opinion, any agent program is not compete or non-solicit, I would be staying away from. You know, this may be a controversial take, but I think it's 2026 now. There's a ton of agent programs that do not have a bad debt clause or an escrow. You just have too many good options to go have. And what I mean by that, a bad debt or an escrow, is they're taking 1% of revenue out of your check every week, or they're making you pay startup costs or things like that. I mean, there's too many good programs out there where you don't need to be, you know, doing that kind of stuff right now. And also like what your protection is. I mean, a lot of W-2 reps, I talk about this frequently, but they're used to it. They're W-2. Oh, if a customer goes out of business, or if, a claim happens, or, this, I'm a W-2 employee, so it's not my problem. Well, a lot of agent programs, that is much different. So definitely be asking the questions on how that stuff works, because you think it might not happen to you, but all it takes is, one, and I've heard, a couple stories already this year of agents getting bankrupt because of that, and they're not asking those questions on the front end. So that'd be something I would really be, looking at when you're, looking to choose an agent program.
Yeah, last week on the show, Cody Godfrey was on, and we actually discussed insuring your receivables, or making sure that within your agent agreement, figuring out, hey, are your receivables insured? Are they not insured? bad debt clauses, just like you just touched on, Matt. These are all very important things. And a lot of times, or heck, even like claim situations, a lot of times these aren't really discussed on the front end. I always try to do my best with agent prospects of covering all of these things, but there are a lot of nuance. So for the agents out there listening or brokers out there listening, looking to become agents, make sure that you're asking about these things. Or heck, even touching on, like right now, credit is it's a very big deal because there's a lot of agent programs and brokerages out there on the W-2 side that just aren't paying their carriers. And if you get into a situation where, you're trying to move freight for your customers and you can't do that because you can't get a carrier because um, you're blacklisted, or you're just, you can't move freight with your brokerage. I mean, that just looks bad on you from the perspective of your customers. Matt, is that something that's on the forefront for you guys at HD? Because I know you guys have an in-house brokerage there, so it's all the more important to make sure the freight continues to move.
Yeah, 100%. And I've seen that as a big reason of people, moving from W-2s or moving agent programs is not being able to pay carriers. I mean, it's not a secret. You see it all the time out there. Brokerages are going under left and right. Trucking companies are going under left and right. And what I usually don't rush people. I'm pretty laid back recruiter, but one situation where I do, and I wouldn't say put pressure, but I do encourage people to move rather quickly. You almost never see if I'm not talking about just one factoring company or one misunderstanding. I'm talking about if multiple large factoring companies will no longer work with your current brokerage. I have not yet to see that be recovered from. I mean, maybe they'll sell or some acquisition, but you rarely see that ever be recovered from. And what could happen is that they go under, those customers could carriers could come and sue your customers for payment. And even though they've already paid the brokerage, and good luck trying to keep those relationships if your customers, doesn't matter how good a relationship you have, if you just made them have to pay twice for, hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of freight bills. So, if your brokerage is having multiple major factoring companies pull out and you're having trouble booking trucks, I would advise you not to wait around too
Yeah.
long.
Yeah. And that's been happening more and more frequently lately. And with that happening lately, capacity is obviously squeezing right now, Matt. Does that change your outlook on the agent program for this year in 2026 and beyond, or unchanged? I know you've always said that you're pretty bullish on the agent programs.
It's interesting. That's a really good question. So I've only recruited when the market's been bad. And, I've heard that, when the market is good, it's, more people are, able to leave because, it's easier to onboard customers and people are making more money because rates are higher. But on the flip side, I don't know because, for example, a lot of reasons people move is not being able to pay carriers, mission changes, those things, generally things that are hurting employees, generally happen in more of a bad market, which is, I've had agents tell me, "Hey, I never would have left this company. I love my coworkers, but once they changed the commission plan or once they stopped being able to pay carriers, I had to make a move." And I want the market to get better for our agents, and just for everyone in the industry as a whole. It's obviously better, for everyone. The market is good, but I'm not so sure that it's going to be, you know, any different recruiting agents. The reasons that agents might want to move might be different, but I'm not like, convinced that, you know, it's going to be like that different. Maybe I'm wrong. I haven't recruited in that market, but I think, some of the reasons that you see people becoming agents now won't be as, you know, m- as common when the market is good. But I don't know. That's just my opinion. I really don't know. Time will tell on that one.
And to your point on that, and this is a point of consideration for agents out there when you are looking for a new home. God forbid you are, because we all know moving sucks in any capacity. Something I've noticed earlier, I mentioned that it was like a bizarrely good month on the recruiting side here at Select. Um, but something I'm running into repeatedly, especially as customers are getting more and more picky with their transportation partners, is they aren't moving. So, like you as an agent, Mr. and Mrs. Agent, you're looking for a new home, or your last brokerage isn't paying the carriers and you need to find a new home. You don't even want to, but it's just you have to. We're seeing this a lot now where the customers aren't moving. Remember, you could have a great relationship with your point of contact at a shipper, but remember, they have a boss. That boss has a board to answer to, a CEO to answer to, and maybe their plans for 26, at least early in the year with tighter capacity, with more risk in the marketplace, they're not willing to move. So if you are about to make a move, make sure that you are touching base with your customers thoroughly, well in advance of any move, just to make sure that your business is sticking with you versus completely starting over. Matt, are you seeing anything similar on your side, or am I just alone in the woods on that one?
Yeah, customer setups have been taking a little longer, especially the last couple months. We definitely seen that as well. And it obviously matters to the size of the customer. Obviously, if you have a relationship with the trading company and your relationship is with the owner, it's going to be, the owner says he'll move with you. That's a little bit easier than if you're trying to transfer a RF, a bid, an enterprise shipper, that might onboard once a year. So I think the size of the customer matters, and relationship. Obviously, if it's a family member of yours, that's going to be, you would hope
Yeah.
that would transfer over. Um, but I will say it probably is taking a little longer the last couple months. Um, for a transition. Now, when the market flips, I think that may be a little bit different. And I just read, today we're up to 13% tender rejection. So, I mean, there's some signs. I don't speculate or post about the market because I don't really know. It's just a guessing game, but I do enjoy reading others' opinions on it. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens in that regard in Q1.
Yeah. And it kind of just comes full circle to what you said in the beginning about having solid relationships, whether it's on our side of the business, Matt, or for the agents and their customers. Like that is what this all boils down to. This is a completely relationship based business. And the tighter you are with not only your POC at a shipper, but visit those customers, get in tight with whoever is above your POC, like get in to know the board of directors, get to know the CEO if possible, like be that go-to for those individuals so you just become integral to their shipping needs. Matt, earlier we touched on like fraudsters in the industry. They're just like fake customers. There's fake agents out there too, and they can really do some damage to our agent programs. How do you particularly, we're gonna flesh out all the fraudsters right now. How are you finding out about that? Like what are the red flags you look for in agents that you're like you or your team are thinking about onboarding, but through your experience, and you've been doing this for a long time now, how do you identify the red flags in individuals you don't want?
Yeah, a big one, believe it or not, is LinkedIn. Like if you have a LinkedIn profile that just was activated a month ago, we have like no mutual connections, and you're reaching out to me to be a freight agent. I'm not saying that you're not legitimate, but my hairs are gonna go up a little bit on that one.
Spidey senses are tingling.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a big one. You know, if they're coming directly, believe it or not, like directly through like the website. I mean, most people that are going to reach out to me have my LinkedIn. They may have engaged, they may have looked at my profile. They're going to come through LinkedIn. Not that we haven't had some good leads come through the website, but most of the fraud is, I think a lot of the fraud is coming through job postings and inbound through websites. You don't see too much. If somebody has an active LinkedIn profile with their work history, and you can see when someone joined LinkedIn. Uh, that's a big one. You can also see kind of with, beyond that, kind of what kind of questions they're asking, what they're, concerned in. Do they really know, a whole lot about freight, with what they're saying? But I mean, a lot of that I think is on the front end. I mean, you're rarely going to see, I'm not saying that fraudsters aren't sophisticated, but you don't really see somebody's going to like maintain a LinkedIn profile for 5 years, with reputable brokerages on there, bunch of mutual connections, comments, and all of a sudden one day, like, going to want to go commit fraud. It's normally somebody who just created a LinkedIn profile, very little connections, very little activity, or coming inbound, And I think some, because our job is hard, I think some fraudsters get away with it because it's hard signing agents. So some recruiters like, oh yeah, I'm going to get this 100K guy who reached out to me. He's got
Yeah.
Coca-Cola as a customer, this, and this. Like, let's sign him. Let's get him on board,
Yeah.
and they don't like, they don't. It's the same way brokers could be, had by fraudsters too. I mean, I'd love to say it's, possible, but you're not probably going to get an inbound, from an enterprise Fortune 100 company just messaging you. They want to work with you all of a sudden, if they found you on LinkedIn, you're one person agent and they want to work with you with no referral, no nothing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think some of these fraudsters play into emotions on all sides of the industry, even with, theft of goods. I mean, some broker has a load that needs to be covered. Is just thinking about the customer, and a lot of red flags, and their emotions get in the way, and so yeah.
When those gold bars start spinning, yes, exactly right, Matt. They play into the emotions big time. And there's some brokerage owners that watch this show, and just some tips for those individuals is like, on LinkedIn the other day, I saw I wouldn't name their name, but I can't even remember who it was anyways. They said they're a brokerage owner and they just launched an agent program, and they were kind of bragging about this one call close that they had with an agent. They had no idea who it was. It was an inbound, and they got him on the phone, boom, closed him, and kind of talking that up. And I was just thinking in the back of my mind, like, shaking my head a little bit, because for me, historically, that is a red flag. Just like you said, like there's a lot of inbounds that can be potentially fraudulent. Typically, that's what I would kind of key in on, is like, are they coming to you and they're not a referral? But then if they close like that same day, it's like, why are you trying to move your business so quickly? Like, what happened at your last spot that you're moving that fast? And it could be a bunch of things on top of just being a fraudster.
And I'm glad you bring that up, because I mean, there's always exceptions to rules, but I mean, in general, if somebody has a lot of freight, they're going to be very skeptical, and they're going to want to know a lot of questions. They're going to want to talk to their wives. They're going to want to time a transition. They're going to want to see your tech. They're going to want to think about it for a couple of weeks. Like, I would say my average agent is probably signing in like 6 to 7 weeks average, and I've had some in a couple weeks, and I've had a couple good agents that took 9 months to a year to sign,
Oh, yeah.
So, the idea that you're going to just get on the phone now, why I say there's exceptions is maybe somebody, you know, got presented a new non-solicit. Their company just took their account and made it in-house yesterday, and they need to move somewhere within a couple days. Like, there are exceptions where people might need to move very quickly, but it's
Or their brokerage
very,
just became unfactorable, like we were just
yeah.
talking about before. Things like that.
Even if it's
Exceptions.
unfactorable, I noticed. I mean, I would love that people would just sign on one call, but even in those situations, they're probably going to move faster, but it's going to be still a week or two, and want to ask a bunch of questions unless the brokers weren't under. But yeah, I would be very hesitant if somebody just hops on the call and like, hey, send me a document. I want to sign on. Right this second, ask me like 4 or 5 questions. I'd be like, what's going on here? So
Yeah. Yeah, I've noticed that too. There's been more than a few agents I've talked to in 2025 that, as far as I know, they went down with the Titanic. Like, they didn't want to move, or it could have been a situation where maybe they were like, they had customers that were just grandfathered into working at that brokerage. Like, now they're unwilling to move to a new transportation partner, things like that. But yeah, there are the real agents, I think, are far more likely to go down with the ship if they just simply can't move their customers. It is a reality.
yeah, 100%.
And on the other side of that coin, we're talking about like fraudsters in the industry. This is a good one for the agents out there that are listening, or if you're new to agency. Like, if you get an inbound, whether it's via LinkedIn or wherever you're reachable, and it's somebody reaching out to you asking to be a sub agent for you, you got to like pause for a minute and ask yourself, why do they want to be a sub agent for me? Like, because what we're seeing a lot is there's those individuals that are reaching out, and they're claiming they have like 2 or 3 pretty large customers doing 10, 15K a month or more in profit. Ask yourself, why would they want to be a sub agent for you versus just being an agent? So if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it very well might be a duck. Think about
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's one I didn't even think about. We haven't had any agents get approached by any fraudulent sub-agents yet, at least to my knowledge, but that is, a trick that obviously is out there too. I don't even think about that. I think more of fraudulent agents trying to come on as agents themselves, or fraud with shippers, fake shippers, or fraud with, carriers. But sub-agents is one I hadn't even really considered, but yeah, that is a viable option.
Freight Agent Insider Tips for Success.
Matt, as we wrap the show up here, this went very quick, as I figured it would, because we can talk about this stuff all day. Give us with your best tip for success for the younger brokers and agents out there looking to become the next big thing.
Yeah, I think this will annoy a lot of the sales gurus or people with like 10, 15 years experience. I mean, selling freight is a very difficult job, but at the same hand, my opinion, is not rocket science. The one thing that, you can control is hard work. Before I ever got on LinkedIn, I was one of the last people to leave the office, one of the first there. I've been in sales for 10 years, never knew anything, didn't know what a flatbed was, didn't know what a dry van was when I entered. But one thing I did know is if I, worked hard and had a determination to get it done, I, thought good things would happen. And that worked out quite well for me. So I would say if you're new, don't worry about. I think another thing too is simplify it. I mean, I went after food when I just started mainly, and a couple construction products that I knew well. I didn't try to go after things I didn't understand, or I wanted to be able to understand and just target a certain area, a certain niche, and just focus on that, and then work hard at that. And I think you'll have results no matter what the market is. There's all sorts of different sales styles I've seen work. You'll tell people to, cold call cell phones, not to cold call cell phones, do this, not to do this. I mean, you can make an argument for a number of things, but if you simplify the process and work hard, I think you can have success in any market. But that's my opinion.
Matt, so well said. It's just easy to see why you're successful at what you're doing. Guys, thanks for joining us. Remember, we'd love to get some more interaction with all of the show guests. Please go to freightagentinsider.com, click the page Talk to Us Live, ask some questions or leave some comments. We'll play them live here on the show. We've gotten a little bit more traction with that, but want to see some more. Matt, thanks again for stopping in with us, and we'll circle back in 2026 and do this again, man. Thanks for joining.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for watching the Freight Agent Insider Podcast. Like us and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, and LinkedIn